Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Oneness of Black podcast. Let's give a virtual round of applause. Yes, this is exciting. So, I am Brittany Jenkins Morrow, and I'm the hostess host today. So, I've been tasked with the great job of introducing Dr. Erica Pike and really giving you guys some insight about her. And what I know about her is that she's a wife, she's a mother, she's a trailblazer, she's an educator for over 20 years, getting her start in the beautiful city of New York, one of my favorite cities in this country. She's a volunteer. She's passionate. She's excited about nurturing just young minds and just motivating and mentoring others to be their best because we are stronger
Stronger
together.
together.
So really excited to have Dr. Pike today and to really be able to bring you guys this new, innovative, and insightful podcast. So welcome, Dr. Pike. Like I
Thank
said, I'm the host
you.
of the host. So
Woohoo.
from here on out, you guys will be seeing her, but I wanted to, be the one to kind of bring her
Yes.
out and shine this great light on this beautiful woman and really get you guys just to know her just a little bit better. So like I said, you're a wife, you're a mother, you're an educator, you're an advocate.
Yes.
Tell us what inspired you after all of the great accomplishments that you've had in your career. What inspired you to kind of, come into the light and really create, come into the light, right?
Coming to the
It's come into the
light.
light, Caroline, and create this, this really strong podcast. Because with the podcast title,
Oneness
oneness
of
of black,
Black.
when I think of black, I think of strength.
Yes.
For
Yes.
you to
Mhm.
to really take this on, what inspired you to create this podcast?
All right. Okay. So I've been really passionate, very passionate, Brittany, about the oneness of Black for a long time. So as you know, I'm from New York. Well, I was born in Jamaica, right? And I spent my teenage years in the Bronx. And then I went to college upstate New York. And then I lived there, started my career there and everything. So when I started my career in New York, I was working in a neighborhood that had a diversity of different Black cultures, and that was very interesting to me to see how the pot was like melted pot of all different Black nationalities and cultures, and just the way how people were unified, just on their strength, on the oneness of Black. um, and sometimes we also see where one culture may not understand another culture that well, or there might be, just a little bit of misconception,
Mhm.
or sometimes uh, unconscious bias is what I like to call it. Unconscious bias sometimes happen with one person versus the other, but then there are also different disparities amongst us, within our own Blackness, our own families, just different shades, or yeah, just different experiences that Black cultures have because we're so diverse. So the unity and just to be uniformed and be stronger together is one of the things that I really want to see come out of these discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that you just said that I definitely can relate to is colorism. Growing up in a family, for
Yes.
me, my parents are not as light as I am. Their complexion is, not as light as mine. And even growing up, people would look at my parents and look at me and be like, wait a minute. I thought she may have been biracial or something of that
Hmm.
nature, of, identify with a different ethnicity.
Hmm.
But I've been Black. So, my mom, she used to call me
Yeah.
red. I was like, don't call me that. So
Right.
even thinking about, from that lens,
Hmm.
thinking about, being different shades and
Yeah.
how even within our own ethnicity, how we
Hmm.
look at each other
Right.
different. So did
Different.
you
Hmm.
experience any of that? I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure there was, some of that as
Yeah.
well for you as well.
Yes. So, growing up in my household, I was the darkest child in the house. So we have it different, right? So you were the lightest, and I'm the darkest. I was the darkest child in the household. So I just experienced different name calling. So you were called red, and I was called black. Like Blackie, and it was just like very, it left a mark, not a good one, on my psyche, as a child, trying to understand, like, why I was the darkest one in the house, as far as a child. My dad was dark, thank God, I was able to, he was like, I think he saw how I felt, right, as a child. And so, like, I became like his favorite. Everybody knew, yeah, I'm daddy's girl, I'm daddy's girl. But it was more so because of our shade. He and I shared the same shade. But, like my mom, light skin, laser, hazel eyes. And, so the family, like there was a little bit of discrepancy amongst that. Us when it comes to our shade. Yeah. So being treated differently, I felt I was being treated differently. I'm sure they probably thought, oh, it's a normal thing, right? She's darker, we're just going to mess with her. But sometimes, words can really leave a lasting impact on others. So
yeah, absolutely. And it has caused division. It caused division then and even now, we still see it. I do feel like we live in a time that is a little bit more inclusive. Yeah. Even thinking back to when I was in high school, 20 some years ago, I can't believe I'm saying that. 20 some years ago, it was, it was just very evident. Some of the things, that I would hear, and, growing up in a predominantly Caucasian area in South Georgia, I often, could identify. You can see it, right? Yeah. Even if you don't always have to have words to speak these things, you can kind of see it in the way people carry themselves and how they act. So yeah, I definitely can identify with that.
And I noticed that too the other day. I was in the office. I was getting ready to leave school. And, like some of the little students were in the office area. And I recognized one of the students because, I knew her from last year. And so, of course, I'm excited. She's like, oh, hi, Dr. Pike. And I was like, hi, sweetie, how are you? Right. And I'm so excited to see her and everything. And so she had some other little kids around her. And I just did a quick glance. And so I glanced, like they all look like, they could be siblings. So I was like, oh, you're here with your siblings. And she was like, so she looked at them and herself, and she was like, no, they are mixed. And she finally came up with it, and she said, they are mixed. And I'm brown. And so I just did a quick glance, and I was like, oh, we're all black. Okay. And then so she said, she looked at me like, you might be black, but we're not black. Yeah. Yep. Like, look at us. So I'm not quite sure what they've been exposed to, in conversations, or why they would see the discrepancies, like I was talking about, in the different shades. Like, they are little students in elementary school, so why would they even felt it was necessary to distinguish between the mix, the lighter skin, and then me, the darker skin? So I don't really know what the exposure has been, but that's why I think we need this discussion, so that even our younger generation can understand, yes, we may look different. Right. But guess what? We're black. Yep. Right? Absolutely. They're going to see us as what? As black. As black. And, the other races or anyone else looking at us, they're going to see all of us as just black. So it's important for us to understand our cultures are different, yes, but we are one. We are black, and we're stronger together. We just need to unify.
Absolutely. Definitely agree with that, especially with exposing the younger generations, right? I think of my dad. He said every generation should be greater than the one before it. And so I feel like we're charged with the duty to educate, little black girls, little black boys, and make sure that they are proud of who they are and they are confident in who they are. And again, I remember growing up in a predominantly white area where I remember wanting my hair to be straight all the time. My mom's like, girl, we can't straighten your your hair every day, it'll fall out. So
Right.
even understanding
Mhm.
that, but that because that's what I saw day in and day
Yeah.
out, I
Right.
aspired to be that. And
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 we can't do that. But now,
Mhm.
look, you see more natural hair,
Yeah.
natural
Mhm.
hair.
Yep.
Think
Mhm.
about sister with Tia and Tamara. Like they had natural hair, but boy, when they
Yeah.
bone straight, I want my hair bone straight too. But
Yeah.
now,
Now,
things have
yeah.
just changed so
Mhm.
much. There's an embrace for natural
Yes.
hair and
Mhm.
being natural and not being afraid to just you be
Self.
yourself. And
Mhm.
I love that. That's
Yes.
something this
Thanks
generation
to
has.
COVID. When
Yes.
I tell you COVID made it happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Everyone
Absolutely.
started going natural and
Yep.
it's beautiful.
And
It's
it's beautiful.
beautiful.
And
All different
embrace.
types, all different colors. It
Yep.
doesn't matter, right? Like we said,
Yeah.
we are one. We're all black, and
Yes.
it's the strength and the unity behind it that makes it so unique.
Absolutely. Well said,
Yeah.
Dr. Pike. So, kind of shifting a little bit, let's talk about the impact of Oneness of Black. And I love the tagline, Stronger
Together.
Together. I really
Mhm.
love that. So, how are you looking to be impactful through this podcast? What are you really hoping when we tune in and we're able to see you and hear the conversation, and as you bring on more guests, when I hear strong, I'm also thinking, man, when I tune in, I'm going to feel empowered.
Mhm.
I was listening this morning, and it was three young girls, and they were singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing." I got teary eyed because you could
Mhm.
feel
Yeah,
the
you could feel that
strength just
strength.
from
Yeah.
that song.
Mhm.
And I know that's something that you're hoping to give us as your
Yes.
audience. But talk a little bit about the impact. What are you hoping
Mhm.
that this podcast really do for your listeners?
Yeah. So one of the things, let me just start out by saying that the One is a Black podcast, the discussions that we're going to have is going to be centered around, yes, the disparities in our perception of Black cultures, but also we also want to look at the fact that despite the differences and the diverse cultural backgrounds, we have unique experiences like we just shared. Like
Yeah.
we both have different experiences, unique experience, unique backgrounds, appearances are different. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have, and most of us, well, some of us are from different regions, different areas. And so I want to take a look at and make sure that we're having these rich discussions just to share with people, because sometimes we don't really know people's, others' differences or backgrounds, and, to be able to open up
Mm-hmm.
ourselves to them to understand, right? To be more compassionate, to say, oh, that's your experience, that's where you're from, and just kind of understanding the culture is a little bit different. So I think as we all come together and we have these rich discussions,
Yeah.
I feel like we will be able to understand others better,
Yeah.
despite their region, where they're from, or anything like that. And then, as far as where we're heading, we are heading to definitely want to have some rich discussions with some of our amazing guests that we have coming up. So, like you said before, with that strong Black personality and their experiences, it's going to be great hearing from someone who has been there through some different trials, different experiences, and then they can able to share those experiences for others to see and understand and get a better understanding of different cultures, create that unity, that oneness. Of our cultures, and then understand too that we're stronger together, because even though we're from different areas and different places, different experiences, when we come together, let me tell you, like I have a group of lady friends and we're from different places.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we're from different places, like Brittany and I, we bond, like
Yep.
we bonded, we, have this relationship, and it's, and we don't look at the fact that, oh, I'm from here and you're from there,
Mm-hmm. Right.
right? We just like, listen, we like each other.
Yeah.
We like each other.
Absolutely.
Like we were able to just open up and just kind of get to know each other, because I admired her strong Black personality as an amazing Black woman, and she was like, oh, Dr. Pike, so we kind of like just
Yes.
gel.
Yes.
And so I want the audience to get to the place where they are able to let their guard down a little
Yeah.
bit, to be open to other cultures that's Black, because we're stronger together. And so when we let our guards down and we let others in, you'd be surprised, how much it can impact
Yeah.
someone else, and how that person can impact you. And then you realize, listen, we're stronger together.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So well said. See, guys, this is what we have to look forward to with this podcast. One thing that I do appreciate about Dr. Pike, and I would say this in her presence and in her absence, is her transparency. And you don't always get that. People look for you to be authentic and transparent.
Yeah.
Now, granted, some things, are private, so
Yeah.
you share what you can share. But there are times that we could be a little bit more,
Open.
open and transparent, especially with our experience as a culture, as a people. Like you were saying that we are one, but we all come from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
We have had different experiences. I remember coming in to Atlanta and moving from somewhere in South Georgia and coming to Atlanta and seeing Black people thriving. I was like in a culture shock. And so was my son. He went to school with predominantly white kids, and to come and he actually had Black teachers. He was like, Mom, I only had one Black teacher and I'm 14. So to come here, and it was just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I could see his love for who he is as a young Black male in America. I can see him embracing it. And now, deciding to go to HBCU, I don't even know if he would have made that choice if he wouldn't have came and saw Black educators. And, he said, Mom, they deal with us differently. You can feel the love, even when they're, a little strict. I know it's coming from a good place.
Yes,
and that is so important. So let me ask you this, Dr. Pike. Thinking about passion, and I know we kind of touched on it in the beginning about what inspired you to do this podcast, but was it something that really hit you just in your being that made you so passionate about the work that you've done, even being in education, because all of it kind of meshes together, even coming to the podcast and having conversations and educating the listeners. Where did that come from? Was that something that you saw as a little girl and you just knew, from being little Dr. Pike that she was going to grow up and be strong Dr. Pike? Or, was it someone that you admired or anything like that really kind of gave you that passion? Because one thing about Dr. Pike, audience, I'm going to tell you, is that she's vocal. She's vocal, and so that's a good thing. You need people to be vocal, and she don't mind speaking for, those who may not want to use their voice. And that's amazing. So tell us a little bit about your passion, where the passion to help others and the love for other people. Where does that come from?
So like I said, I started my career in New York. And so being in that environment with diverse Black cultures, one of the cultures that actually the Caribbean population was pretty heavy in one of the areas that I went to teach. And I noticed that because I did my doctoral studies 10 years ago now. Oh my gosh. On understanding the needs of the other Black cultures as they come into this country, as far as like what academic bridge is needed to help them to be successful in the school system, because like technically their language is English. But they speak, patois, and and there can be a need for the transition to help them to really bridge, to bridge that gap. And so that's one of the things that I started to advocate for as a teacher in New York years ago. And like I said before, I did my doctoral studies on that concept, that idea. So I noticed that there was a need for Black cultures coming together. I noticed that there was a need for the strength and the unity behind us all standing together stronger, because as we advocate for each other, there is there's success. Things start happening, needles start to move, and we're able to help each other. So it doesn't matter where we're from, where we're born. And I know that a lot of other blacks, they love the fact that they're in this country, okay?
Mhm.
Because this is definitely a country for opportunities,
Absolutely.
right? It really allows us to spread our wings, and whatever we're passionate about, whatever we really want to do, we if we push through, we can really accomplish it. So, even from back then, just like the passion for helping Black cultures has always been a part of me.
Yeah.
So that's something that I kept going throughout my years, working with, with the Title I school districts. Throughout my career, I've come across a lot of different Black cultures, a
Mhm.
lot of different ones, and just really trying to help them to understand, listen, we need to stick together. We
Yeah.
need to work together. We're stronger together. And I feel like creating that awareness that that is a thing,
Yeah.
like people are
Absolutely.
still like divided and we need to come together. So I feel like I was able to really try to own in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we're stronger together.
Yeah, I love that. And what you said is so true. We can be such a divided people,
Hmm.
very smart people,
Yes.
intelligent,
Yes.
innovative. I
Hmm.
get on TikTok or Instagram and see some of the skits and things. I'm
Oh,
like, man, we
yeah.
are some talented people,
Yes, we are.
creative
Yes,
people.
yes,
But that
absolutely.
division and
Hmm.
sometimes that, let's just be honest, that
For
crab in
simple
a
thing
barrel.
too,
Yeah,
for simple things.
yeah,
It could just be like
yeah,
you're lighter, you're
yep,
darker, or you spoke with an accent, or you didn't speak with
yep.
an accent,
Yep,
just like
absolutely.
simple things.
Simple things. And if we can just band together,
Hmm.
we can be
Yeah.
more
Hmm.
impactful.
Because, like you said, people have different talents, right?
Yeah,
So, I may have a talent that could benefit you,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
if you have that unconscious bias,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's not that they want to be biased, right?
Hmm.
Or want to be excluded or secluded from others.
Right.
Sometimes it's unconscious.
Yep, it's unconscious.
It's really unconscious.
Yeah.
So it's these unconscious biases. Like I watched a documentary on unconscious biases. Of course, it was talking in regards to white versus the black. But if we really think about it, we have our own unconscious
Oh,
biases
yes.
amongst other black cultures.
Hmm.
Um, so those are some of the, and sometimes we don't even realize it.
Nope, we don't.
That's why it's unconscious, right?
Yeah.
If you hear someone speak with an accent, you're like, oh, I can't even understand,
Hmm.
or
Yeah,
or whatever it
yeah,
is. And
absolutely.
I know, like, even when I first moved to this country, that's one of the things I didn't want to do. I didn't want to speak,
Hmm.
right? And that's a typical thing for immigrants. Like, they don't want to talk because they don't want to hear their accent,
Hmm.
because right away you're gonna know. Guess what? You're different.
Right.
Like, you weren't born here. You're different.
Yeah.
And so like, you don't fit here. So that's one of the first things that we typically do is lose that accent, because we don't want nobody to know
Yeah.
you came from somewhere else, and then so you kind of lose that particular part of your identity,
Yeah.
just so that you could fit in, so that you can be included.
Yes.
So it's so simple things. It's
Yep.
simple things that we kind of shun each other about, and that prevents us from being a united front
Yes.
where we can be stronger together.
Absolutely. And, we have to recognize that our differences makes
Mhm.
us unique.
Yes.
And it really helps to blend us
Yeah.
all together.
Together. Hmm.
And that is something that I have come to love.
Yeah.
Over time now. I'm gonna be honest. Over time, like, remember, I grew up in
Hmm.
around, amongst
Once.
more
Yeah.
Caucasian.
Hmm.
So that's what I started to look at,
Yeah. Hmm.
even like I said, even as success, I didn't see a black woman, like a black successful
Hmm.
woman, until I got here to a
Yeah.
more,
To Atlanta.
yeah, to
Oh,
Atlanta in South
wow. Okay.
Georgia. I
Hmm.
mean, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I
Wow.
never
Wow.
saw a black
Hmm.
mayor. Never. I never
Wow.
saw,
Hmm.
black councilmen or
Hmm.
councilwomen. I didn't see that. Didn't
Wow.
see many black business owners.
Hmm.
So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's interesting too for me. Now that you said that, I'm reflecting too, as a teenager in the Bronx, and like I mentioned to you before, being an immigrant, my first exposure to a different black culture, was when I moved here, right? So,
mhm,
like my own black culture, being a Jamaican, was totally different from what I saw when I came. So, like the Bronx is rough, okay? So it's rough. So that definitely a culture shock, going to high school, um, definitely a culture shock. Because my first day, I had to go through a metal detector. I was like, what is this? Right?
Right.
And just having these high rise building, as a school, it was just like so different. But even beyond that, yes, I saw Black teachers and everything, but I was seeing a lot of, Blacks on the street, pushing drugs, living in the projects,
Yeah.
so I didn't really see a good representation of Black.
Yes.
Like you said, you saw a good representation of Black when you got to Atlanta. When I lived in the Bronx, I wasn't seeing that right away. Like it took a minute. My first exposure to a professional Black family record said, oh my gosh, what? And that's when I really said, oh, we have, like
Yeah,
professional Black, like I didn't
absolutely.
even know the word professional at the time, I was a teenager.
Right.
So that wasn't even a thing, but I heard a couple, one was I think a school psychologist, and the other one was another professional, right?
Yeah.
And so, so I heard them use a term one day, because I was babysitting. I was in high school, so I was babysitting for their child, and so she used the terminology. Her husband was, the wife was asking about someone, and the husband was like, yeah, the couple, like they're professional like us or something like that. And then that's how I kind of got the terminology professional
Right.
Blacks, because I was just seeing all of the projects. I was seeing, all of the negative things. And I was like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
Because, I was not used to that,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it took a minute before I was able to start appreciating,
Yeah.
African American Black culture when I start seeing, that there were professional
Yeah.
Blacks here, not just what I was seeing on the street when I was walking by,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's true. We
Mhm.
we become a product of our environments,
Mhm.
of what we see. And I know in your bio that you talked about just really wanting to empower students from underserved communities, and even
Mhm.
thinking about the terminology of being underserved. Sometimes it's the lack of resources and
Yes.
visibility of
Mhm.
resources.
Yeah,
And so we
absolutely.
condemn each other for what we conform to, but I'm only conforming to what I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Yep. And and sometimes when you do have the right influence, right? Someone else there to say, okay, this is not all there is, right? This is not all there is
Right.
to life.
Right.
There are other options, there are other choices. And and I told my kids, several times I could have made the wrong decision living in New York, in the
Yeah.
Bronx, growing up as a teenager. I could have made a decision to do drugs, to be a
Right.
prostitute, because I was seeing that. I was walking in, passing those apartment, gates to come into my apartment. I was, and they were trying to recruit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I could have made a decision. I could have made a decision not to go to college.
Right. Absolutely.
Like not to pursue the path that I did. And I thank God that I did pursue the right path. That's because I end up having good people in my path,
Mm-hmm.
to really say, okay, listen,
Yeah.
there are other options. Not because you see this, because I'm telling you, it was in your face
Right.
all day
Absolutely.
long, every day. But there are other choices.
Yes.
So, yes, I'm definitely grateful for that. That's why I mentioned to you before, we are definitely stronger together.
Yes.
Because what if I didn't have that influence, that positive Black influence in my life to say, and yes, a teacher, in a high school, to say to me, there are other ways,
Yes.
not just this path. So, and it turned out that we are stronger together because
Absolutely.
someone else honed me in the right path. So yes.
Look at Dr. Pike charging us up to,
Yeah.
to be able to be that example.
Yeah.
And I hope, even as we're sitting here, that someone else is being encouraged to be more engaged and active in their communities or other communities, even if you live outside of that, being able to volunteer your time at a
Yeah.
local Boys and Girls Club, or, at the YMCA, or what have you, at these different organizations and
absolutely.
nonprofits where you can get in front of not just children, but adults too,
They
because
need
like
it
we
to.
said,
Yeah.
we're all products of
products.
our environment, so
Yeah.
we don't know what they
Mm-hmm.
could have encountered or
Mm-hmm.
been through.
Right.
And it's hard sometimes to change the
Yeah.
mind. It
Mm-hmm.
is difficult
Yeah.
to change because you can't take away what people
Mm-hmm.
have been through.
Yeah.
Right? You
That's
just have to
absolutely
try to
true.
encourage
Mm-hmm.
them and, utilize resources
Yeah.
to get them through
Mm-hmm.
some of the hardships
Yeah,
and things that they
absolutely.
have been
Yeah.
through.
And when you said that, that really reminded me because yes, I came as a teenager, right? But then there are adults who are migrating to this country that are black with different cultures.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
so for them, their culture is stronger, or rooted, like deeply rooted in them because they grew up
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
Like for me, the transition was a little bit different because I came as a teenager, so I was able to to acclimate real quick,
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
like when I went to by the time I got to college, nobody knew I was from another country. I had absolutely
Wow.
no accent,
No
none,
residue.
not one bit. No one knew, like and I kind of wanted to keep it that way because you just wanted to be normal, like a normal
Understood.
black
Yes.
American, right? But then I think about, like, for example, like my husband, right? He grew up in Jamaica, so he he still has an accent, and of course because of him I got my accent back. How Erica got her accent back, Rohan Pike. But so I kind of got that back. So now I'm thinking about these older black people who come here, and for them to acclimate is a little bit harder. And so it's kind of harder for them to gel, to put their guard down,
Hmm.
to blend with other black cultures and try to be stronger together. And like you said, the resources to help them to do that. So just being able to create awareness, try to understand them, understand what they're feeling, trying to gel in a community that is so foreign
Yeah.
actually to
Yeah.
them. It's something that we have to also be aware of, as African Americans. I know I call myself that, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. To be aware of. Of the other black cultures,
Yeah.
just to be aware that people are trying to survive or live or understand another culture,
Absolutely.
and befriend other people and be stronger together.
Absolutely. You
Mm.
guys see all this greatness pouring out of Dr. Pike. So this is what we can expect as she continues to develop this podcast, as more episodes become available. So this is like, it's like a good appetizer.
Yes, good
Getting you guys ready for main
appetizer.
course after main course after main course. You're gonna be so full after you tune in. You're gonna
Yeah.
be so intellectually just full
Yeah.
to hear these great conversations. So even thinking towards long terms, tell us about any of the guests or any of the topics, or that we can expect to
Yeah.
hear from you on this podcast.
So we're going to have a flow, right? I am hoping to have black guests of all different black cultures, right? Like I said before, I have a group of lady friends, that we are from different backgrounds. One of them, she's from Guyana, and then of course we have Black American. So we like, for example, recently we had, like, I was on a group chat with some of the ladies, and one of the ladies that was on the chat, she was talking about going to an Indian store to go purchase food
Mhm.
items. And so one of the other ladies, she was like, oh, I won't even go in there. Like she's like, I can't even go in their store because of the smell of the certain smell of the certain food,
Mhm.
doesn't really resonate with her. So one of the other lady who's from Guyana, she has Indian background. So she was like, huh? What? Wait a minute.
What that mean?
What do you mean by you won't go in the store? Because of the Indian background. So like I said before, just understanding each other and each other's culture. And we love each other, but we're from different cultural
Yeah.
experiences and background, but we just have to understand how we can be able to put certain things aside. So I'm sure
Yes.
she had to forgive her.
Yes.
And try to work it out and understand that despite our differences, we're going to be stronger together. So I'm hoping to have like some really good experiences to be shared, right? So one of the we have a flow. So one of the things that I'm going to ask all guests to do, one, we will have them share their cultural experiences from childhood all the way up to adulthood, just kind of like what Brittany did today for us, sharing some of her experiences. Because of course, when you share, that really helps others to understand where you're coming from. Like, because we are the way we are because of our experiences, right? And so being able to share that, and also understand what have been their interactions with other Black cultures, because we have different, like you were able to interact with my Black culture, other people's Black culture,
Yes.
and like I shared before too, you know being a teenager in the Bronx, I experienced different Black culture there when I first moved. So just trying to understand their Black culture cultural experiences, and see, have they encountered any unconscious biases that they had, shared some of that with us, and how can we get over that? How can we be able to understand how to deal with those unconscious biases, so that way we can build a gap, right?
Yes.
And close the gap, and so that we can be stronger together. And then the last thing that I want to tackle is opportunities for awareness and healing. How can we heal from some of these wounds that we might have developed over the years? Because maybe you were treated, unfairly by someone. So how can we um, he- help you heal in those areas and be stronger together?
Listen, this is exciting. I feel like this is like the cheddar biscuits at Red Lobster. They bring them out and they get you all giddied up because they're so good, but you got some more coming.
Some more coming.
So that's what Oneness of Black is. It's going to be this more that's coming.
More
We're giving
that's
you guys
coming.
some biscuits today, some good appetizers today to really whet your appetite for this great conversations
Yeah.
that's going to continue to develop over time. She's going to have some great guests that
Yeah.
are on here, and they're going to go deep, go
Yes,
deep
they're
into
gonna go deep.
conversation and really
Yeah.
hit on those things she said that she's hoping to accomplish with the podcast. So
Yeah.
before we go, is there anything that you want to leave with the audience? Anything? We got our biscuits now, Dr.
Yes,
Pike.
got
Now
your
we got a
biscuits.
biscuit. So is there anything else you want to put a little butter on it for us?
Put
Anything you
some
want to
butter
leave?
on it. So once again, this podcast pretty much is structured around to encourage meaningful discussions around our cultures, right? We want to be able to create unity, healing, while creating a platform for diverse Black voices.
Yes.
I want diverse Black voices, right? And different perceptions, because like I said, we all have different cultural experiences. And each episode can inspire reflection, awareness, and action towards a stronger and connected Black community. So that's my hope. That's what I want to see: healing and togetherness from our Black community.
Awesome. Well said, Dr. Pike. So we're going to give her a virtual round of applause. We're so excited. Cannot wait for more. So you guys have heard from her today. Again, I'm just the host. So you guys won't be seeing me all the time because I'm hosting the host today. But if there's one thing I want everyone to leave with is remember that we are what? Stronger together.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Dr. Pike. All right, you guys. See you soon.
We're stronger together.